Welcome, welcome, guys. Hope everybody is well. So let me just get set up here, and we'll just do a little bit of a briefing as to obviously what is happening, why, where, how, when, with who. We obviously had a little bit of a, I guess, uneventful market open. Probably the most eventful open was oil. Oil, it gapped up here, tested above. Remember last night I was mentioning, and then it's now back trading within this zone here, and I think this year more than anything, I'm seeing political market manipulation here, and obviously you can tell me I'm full of rubbish, but market gaps up. What ends up being agreed? Why wasn't this agreed yesterday? Why was it agreed? Last night of a temporary ceasefire. There's talks. Well, obviously, I did get that general idea, but there's talks going on in Doha between Iran and the US, but obviously there was a few, I wouldn't say, yeah, minor incidents obviously happened over the weekend, and it's like, as soon as market opens, yeah, no, 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 guys, wait, 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 wait. We've agreed that we're not going to drop any more bombs. It's just a bit crap. But obviously, it's made trading very, very tricky. Like I mentioned to you guys, I didn't want to be in this area here. I obviously wanted dollar to be trading up here, or I wanted it to be trading down here. I didn't want to be waking up this morning and it is where it is. So that's obviously the situation we're in at the moment. We're obviously going against the dollar. So one thing that I like about our entries is what you have to remember is everything has a daily, range, average, yeah. All right, and even London will obviously have an average, range here. And obviously, if we just highlighted your average candle here, all right, so your average range will be about probably 40 to, let's do this one here, 40 to say 80 pips without any kind of news happening. All right, so we have already this morning, we have already moved about 25 30 pips. All right, that to me tells me that we're obviously not going to be pushing to obviously push much higher. We might see, a little bit of a dive down here. So what do I mean by that? We don't have any, major news coming out. The only thing we've got to be careful of if there's any tweets or political rubbish, then that's obviously what we've got to be a little bit aware of here. That's the only thing that's gonna, move the market, and obviously that's what's going to take precedence over everything. All right, yeah, that's one thing that we've got to be aware of a little bit this week as we're trading. So one thing that I like is yields as well have tried to push up, but they're still staying in these lows. Now, this to me is pure indecision here. All right, because markets aren't pushing down. So there's not obviously confidence that this temporary peace deal is going to continue. There's also not confidence that it's not going to continue. And obviously, that's why it'll be very, very interesting. I think yields are going to be the biggest indicator here, even more than oil. If we're breaking out above, there might be a bit of escalation here. If we're breaking out below, then yeah, expect dollar to tumble back down to this, 100, 500 area. All right, so these are obviously all things to be aware of. Now, stock market up, which is good. We got a bit of risk appetite in the, market, but not crazy, risk. If you look at the top 30 companies as opposed to the top 100, top 30. I'd call this roundabout break even. You know, obviously SPX 500 up, but obviously dropping, and obviously US 100, you know, just over 1% up. All right. So, you know, I wouldn't say that it is, you know, it is, yeah, you know, that kind of, mm, you know, risk. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a healthy risk appetite here. All right. Now, going through the trades that we've obviously got, you know, laid out here, I'm staying away from Aussie at the moment. You know, remember we're on a 2 hour time frame. I would leave this marked up. We've been consolidating here since Tuesday, the 23rd of June. You know, so yeah, we want to, you know, see what's going to happen with this kind of trend here. Are we going to see something like this happen where, you know, we had, you know, similar thing here, broke below, and then we've obviously had, you know, similar thing here, broke below, continued, you know, so you want to be kind of identifying not obviously candles, but how price on particular pairs, you know, moves. All right. And obviously, Aussie is one of those. It's a bit like USD CAD because it's commodity backed. Obviously, Aussie is commodity backed by gold, CAD is commodity backed by oil. All right, you know, so that's why you get consolidation, extreme move, consolidation, extreme move, consolidation. You know, are we going to get an extreme move to the upside, or is this going to continue trickling to the downside? So the next one is GBP USD here, and I'm going to do this on a lower time frame. I was tempted to add this one in, but I'm actually happy with gold, and obviously just obviously you know taking gold as a lower time frame trade. But I do think that there is potential here if we look at this on like a 5 minute time frame, something like this, to trade down into our area here. You know, but obviously we'll wait and you know see. I don't think there's enough of a push right now. I do think we're going to have to come back. You know, just obviously wake up a few more buyers before we see this continuation. But I'm happy with our you know trade that we laid out this morning. It was you know one that I didn't want to push it any more than what we have, you know, because yeah, wanted obviously price to come back into this area. You know, you can see how much supports here. You know, if we come back down, retest this area, we're really gonna find out if there's more buyers than you know sellers in the market because we're gonna reject and pump up a bit higher. Euro, you know, that was obviously one I was literally very tempted to put this in after this candle here, taking this one back down into our area, but I've kind of, you know, left it out, you know, because I don't want to overdo it on a Monday morning. Remember, our goal, oh, it's not coming up, but our goal is, you know, always to build our week properly. And obviously, as our you know, if we make profit on a Monday, make profit Tuesday, make profit Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we can be a bit more aggressive because we're not risking our original balance here, which we had on a, you know, a Sunday evening. We're risking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah. All right. And obviously that's the position that we always want to be in here. Then let's obviously have a quick look at USD JPY. All right, I do think, you know, look, these candles are horrible here. And I do think there's probably more potential to, you know, to sell this than there is to buy it, but it's just not quite there yet. I'd like it potentially to take out these highs. And then we obviously might be looking to, you know, sell. But remember, when you're buying USD JPY at the moment, because we're in what's called the intervention, you know, zone. Japan, for those of you who don't know, is one of the only currencies that will buy its own currency to strengthen it. All right, so they call it an intervention, and obviously that's why we're getting these huge. You know, if we look on a 15-minute time frame here, we're obviously not having these massive wicks to the upside, but we're obviously having them to the downside here. And we haven't actually entered USD JPY very much, but we were doing quite well. I think about 3 weeks ago, beginning of the month, where, for example, we might have our entry down here, and then you'd get a candle like this one here, all right? And it was popping down, triggering us, and then continuing, So that's how I'm kind of looking at USD JPY at the moment. But I want to, I want this to kind of take out these highs, and then I can, see a potential big downside move coming. Last but not least, we've got gold here. So gold, let's look at this on a 15-minute time frame here. All right, so gold here, I'm pretty happy with, price when we were looking at this was here. I just wanted it to continue and come in and test, these previous levels of support here. We didn't get that, so I've added in a lower time frame. We got obviously, stop loss value, entry, TP1, TP2, and TP3 here. So currently pretty happy. Let's just check it now, and then obviously I'll let you know. So yeah, pretty happy. Just obviously looking this probably TP1 here. I'll be moving stops to break even. I'll be closing one of my entries and then obviously letting the other one run. So that's obviously what I'm looking for here is a drift down into our area and then obviously a drift to the upside here. Now, b before I go to the questions, one thing that I wanted to, talk to you about is obviously this is my macros, site that I'm building. You can see here we've got the Asian London overlap. One thing that I've added is a very, very, very brief course, which I'm gonna make this better. So yeah, let's wait and and see what happens here. But so obviously, what happens is you generate it, and then and it normally takes about 30 seconds to generate. I've been adding and adding and adding. Could get your questions in while obviously this is, loading. And then, yeah, we can obviously answer some of those as well. Tom, does your USD often move before gold? Can we use this at all for potential trades in gold? No. The only things that I would use for gold is yields is going to be the big one, So if your yields are holding, then yeah, where that's obviously what you can utilize for gold, the dollar, stocks, just kind of identifying where money is, flowing into. So this is obviously, basically my brain is in here. So we've obviously got lots of information here, but this is going to break down every single session, what to be aware of, what's happening, and I'm really looking forward to launching it. I just want to test it. Like I've had a few issues where London obviously wasn't highlighted. It was just Asia. I've taken a few things out. I've added some things in like the course and stuff. So yeah, it's things like this that it's the last trading day of June. It's not tomorrow is, but I'm pretty happy with everything else here. So it'll break down obviously each pair, what you want to kind of be looking out here. Yeah, I'm really happy here. But there's a few more things that I want to add in. So I'm going to test it all week this week, and then yeah, we'll be launching it, and it'll be completely free for everyone. Just to keep you guys updated to starting from July, we're also going to be giving away one K to obviously three members. So what I'm going to do is get the team to kind of look out who's active, who's asking questions, and yeah, we're gonna probably get the shortlist down to like 10 to 20, and obviously then we'll do a big giveaway at the end of the month, so it's worth being around for that one because yeah, we're going to be doing that at the end of July, and yeah, then we'll be yeah, it'd be good to give back as well. So right, if we don't have any more questions, I'm probably going to end it here. Have a great day, everyone. Trade, safe, and yeah, let's go, guys. Let's go.